Welcome to Coach's Corner, everyone. Thank you for watching the show. I am your host, Coach Tripp, Paul Tripoli, and I have a special guest today, Kirk McNair, who is in the Alabama Sports Writers Hall of Fame, founder of Bama Mag in 1979. Is that right, Kirk?
That's right, 1979, Bama Magazine. Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Here it is right here, Bama Mag.
There, look at there.
Oh, my gosh. What is that guy doing on there? Notice the tape and the hip pads and the equipment and all there. How'd you get a weak, slow, fat, dumb, weird, kind of wild walk on from the Yankee walk on there?
It was a long time ago. I can't even remember for sure what our theme was, but eventually we tried to get everybody in there.
You've had so many guys on your magazine. What was a compelling story that you really enjoyed writing about, or you're the editor at the time, I guess?
Well, I was the editor, but I did a lot of writing. I had never thought about, I suspect it was something with Coach Bryant, because I talked to him so much. I'd worked for him for 9 years in sports information before I started the magazine. And we continued. I'd interviewed him before I went to work at Alabama. Then I went to work for Alabama. Then I continued to work with him and cover him to the end of his career and life, which unfortunately came way too soon. Without putting a finger on one thing, I would say that and the other thing that I probably remember is I did a couple of April Fool columns, and one of them was on Alabama was going to add men's hockey to the program, and they were going to have to take out a bunch of seats in Coleman Coliseum to do it, and it was a ridiculous premise, of course, and I'd gotten a picture. Alabama Huntsville had a hockey team, and so they had UAH on it, and I got a picture from one of my newspaper buddies in Huntsville and ran with it, said this would be the uniform, because they wouldn't have time to get the official uniforms through all the legal things, and so they'd be the UA Hawkers. And what made it memorable was that Sam Bailey, who was Coach Bryant's right-hand man, the associate athletics director, called me and wanted to know what in the world I'd written a story about. He hadn't even read it. And I said, Coach, I give you a subscription. You should have read it. and he said he'd gotten a call about somebody who had their seats in the end zone for years and wanted to keep them. And he had read in Bama Magazine that we were going to tear them out. And he was all upset. So we got all that straightened out. So that's a memorable one, but probably not for the best of reasons.
What are some of the one-on-one meetings you had with Coach Bryant that were memorable? What were some of the things that he talked about?
Well, everything. He was a brilliant, brilliant guy. And I think probably the ones that are memorable weren't necessarily about football. I remember one when ABC was doing the games then, and they sent one of their guys down, not one of their, I don't mean Keith Jackson or anybody like that, but one of their research kind of guys down there, and he came to my office. He was going to go up, this was in preseason, and he had set up an appointment to go see Coach Bryant. He had come to my office to go over some things, and he kept saying, well, I'm going to ask Bear this, and I'm going to ask Bear that. Now, I didn't say anything, but as you may remember, Coach Bryant had that sofa in his office right across from his desk that you sank down in it. So you're looking up at him, and at the same time, you're looking at the clock on the back, right behind his head on the wall. It was always set 15 minutes ahead. And at some point, somebody would look at it and say, oh, my God, I've been in here 15 minutes longer than I had been. But the guy, and I sat in with him. I asked him if he wanted me to, and he said, yeah, that'd be great. And so I sat in there and listened to the interview. And when it was over, we went out, and the young man was about sweating bullets. He said he had never been so intimidated in his life. And I can assure you there was no bear this and no bear that in there. He was all Coach Bryant. So I remember that. And I remember when Playboy wanted to send Richard Price, who was a great novelist and screenwriter, and but he'd never done nonfiction, but they wanted to send him here, strictly New York, never been south of the Mason-Dixon line. I'm not sure he'd been south of New York, but they sent him down to they wanted to send him down to do a story. And the editor, the fiction writer from Playboy, the nonfiction writer from Playboy had called me. And I said, well, look, I was funny because I was leaving the next day to go to New York. I said, I won't have time to talk to Coach Bryant about this until I get back from New York, but I'll call you as soon as I get back and get with him. And so we went to New York, and my wife went out book shopping and found two of Richard Price's books that were pretty hard. They were
racy,
pretty blunt conversation and dialogue in them and the description. So when I came back, I told Coach Bryant that I'd just read one of the books by then. My wife had read them both. And I said, laid out what they wanted to do. And I said, now, Coach, anything you say, this guy's going to put it in there. He doesn't mince words. If whatever you say. And Coach Bryant said, that sounds fine. And so he came out and he did the story. And it was the best story I ever saw anybody do on Coach Bryant. It was fabulous. Wow. And Richard called me sometime after that and said it had won the Playboy Nonfiction Award that year, which is a big deal, or was back then. I don't even know if Playboy is still in business, but back then it was big. And I went and told Coach Bryant, and he had read it, and he said, well, I thought it was good too, but blank, I wish he hadn't quoted me saying blank. I'd warned him.
Oh my gosh. Kirk, let's start from the beginning. Where'd you grow up, and talk about your mom and dad and your siblings and how you got into being a writer?
Well, I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, but I grew up in Birmingham. My parents, one was a great athlete, my father, who had been a major college football and baseball player, and left after his junior year to sign with Washington in baseball. But this was right before Pearl Harbor. I think his minor league career over in South Carolina somewhere was like 60 games. And that was the end of his baseball career. Of course, he went into the Army. And my mother was a Latin teacher, a Virgilian society. I mean, she was all about academics. And we grew up in Birmingham, had a great life there. Birmingham was a great place to grow up in those days. And I got into writing kind of, it was a funny situation. After basketball season, I would go to work at the Birmingham Post-Herald, which was a morning paper. So I could, as a copy boy, lowest person in the building. But I did that. And every now and then the sports desk, and one of the sports writers had covered me, which was interesting. He went and got the book that he had covered me in a basketball game and remembered me, probably because I was terrible. I don't remember for sure. But anyway, they'd let me write a little non-important sports stories, somebody calling a tennis report or something like that, right. Not anything big. And I did that for a couple of years just in the spring. And then when I went to college, I was on scholarship, but not athletic scholarship, I assure you, but I was still needed more money than that. And I went to work at the local newspaper, doing grunt work. I mean, I was filthy at the end of the day. I was working down in the press room, and one day they said they'd try me out at proofreading. And from there I went into writing. Then when I got out of that, this is a long story that probably nobody cares about, but I went back to Birmingham to go to law school. And because the Post-Herald was a morning paper, I could be in law school in the day and work at the Post-Herald at night. And they needed somebody in sports who could do the things I had done. working on a small paper, you learn to do everything. And they needed somebody like that. So I went to work at the Post-Herald, and eventually, after a couple of years, really, I don't know what they were thinking. I was assistant sports editor and covering Alabama and Auburn back and forth, and went to Charlie Thornton, who was the he was the sports information office, basically, because he had lost his assistant, and he asked me to come down and interview. I didn't think I'd go because we had a new baby. We'd bought a house and hadn't been in it very long in Birmingham, and but I got back, and my wife said, "When can we go?" So very soon thereafter, I was in Tuscaloosa in 1970, working under Charlie Thornton in the sports information office, and then promoted to sports information director after 4 years. Again, I'm thinking, what are these people thinking? This young guys, they shouldn't have these jobs, but I did. And of course, I enjoyed it very much. And then eventually, Coach Bryant had lots of money, and I guess he thought people that worked for him didn't need much. And I just finally decided I could pay myself more than he was going to pay me. And I started Bama Magazine, and fortunately that worked out. And of course, the print business has gone away. And so now I've been writing for a long time now for internet sites.
Wow. Besides Charlie Thornton and those guys early in your career at Alabama, on a radio show a while ago, I guess you appeared with Doug Layton. Someone asked you if you and Cecil Hurt were the same person.
Yeah.
And I knew Cecil, but you had a great relationship with him for 40 years. He was an outstanding writer. He actually, I think I read somewhere where New York Times was going to hire him, but he said, well, the highlight of my year would be the one Alabama game I could cover. Now I can cover all of them. Tell me about Cecil in your relationship with him.
Well, it was a great relationship. He was one of my student assistants when I was sports information director, and obviously a brilliant guy. We had great student assistants. Cecil was one of them, but there were great ones, smart guys, all went on very successful careers. And Cecil, of course, stayed in the sports business as a sports writer and up to very quickly sports editor of the Tuscaloosa News. And that was a funny story that, yeah. And Cecil and I both got a kick out of it. And, yeah, the guy asked if Doug had ever seen us both in the same room, and so and Doug said, "Of course I have."
Ghostwriter for each other, I guess. Oh my gosh! Well, was it a couple of days ago? Yesterday, you wrote an article. Are you rewatching the demise of Alabama's reign? I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but tell us about that and what it is. I want to mention before you mention your reply, Kirk, that Dr. Galen McCullough mentioned in one of his books, he was close friends with Coach Bryant, and towards the end of Coach Bryant's career, he was worried that Alabama was going to take a dip, and Alabama fans would not understand it. What did you say in the article, and what do you think about Saban's reign?
Well, of course, he's, I don't compare Coach Bryant and Coach Saban. They were both the greatest of their eras, to maybe the two greatest people that ever coached college football.
Absolutely.
Different in a lot of ways, but the same in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And the article was sort of alarmist to some, but I was gratified to notice that on our website, Bama 24/7, that most of those who replied to it thought I had made valid points. And the first point I made was I went back to Coach Bryant, and I remembered a column that Tom Seiler, a great sports editor of the Knoxville News Sentinel, wrote a column in the summer of 1971, prior to the start of that season, that Coach Bryant was in the twilight of a great career. It was a very complimentary article, but indicated at age 59, that's how old he was, that he was winding down. And it may have looked, and it looked that way. I'm not saying it didn't, but it did. But as anybody who follows Alabama knows, Alabama switched to the wishbone that August, 3 weeks prior to going to Southern Cal to play, won that game, And I think Coach Bryant was re-energized to football. He may have been considering not continuing. It had 2 back-to-back 6-5 seasons. But at 59, he went on and won 3 more national championships, 8 more SEC championships, became the winningest coach in college football history. And then, unfortunately, of course, he only lived to be 69. Nick Saban will be 72 next month. But Nick Saban is much better shape than Coach Bryant was.
Right.
And my point was that even when things dip, as they had for Coach Bryant, it doesn't mean they can't be fixed and back. But things have to be fixed. There's no question about that. Yep. But Nick Saban's proved to be willing to adapt. He's shown that.
Yes.
He has said that everything that's wrong is fixable, and I believe it. So I think the headline may have given the false impression that it was a negative article. It was not a negative article, certainly not towards Nick Saban, who, good gosh, how could you be negative about the job he's done? But in any event, you've made another point in this. Will there be a dip after Nick Saban's gone? Almost certainly. Certainly. But now Alabama fans of an age at least have a blueprint. They know they should know that's going to happen. It wasn't that Ray Perkins wasn't a good coach and a good recruiter. He was.
Yep.
But you follow Coach Bryant, it's going to be tough. You follow Nick Saban, it's going to be tough.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, Kirk. Adapt or die. That's what Coach Bryant taught me and taught thousands of other guys. And it doesn't matter whether it's in football or business or life. You better learn to adapt or you're going to die. And he did it many times, and Saban's done it as well. Used to be pound and ground and play action and play defense. When Lane Kiffin came, he opened his eyes to, we got to play fast because the rules dictate that. And great coaches do that. They adapt to their environment. They adapt their system around their ball players instead of trying to find, fit their players into their system. That's really interesting. You've seen so much, Kirk, from 1970 on, more than I in 1980. Just an unbelievable years. I'm going to have Jim Bunch on in a little while, All-American lineman. And I think he only lost 5 games in 4 years. I mean, just amazing numbers. People forget that Alabama, everything. I went back to Tuscaloosa because I coached and did my show on Saturday. So I went like 15 years without going back to Tuscaloosa. Everything's changed, but nothing's changed.
Incidentally, Jim Bunch, Keith Jackson told me one time that Jim Bunch was the best college tackle he ever saw.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. And so
you're kidding me.
So I'm telling you because I know Bunch will. You can believe me.
He's got some stories. I can't wait to hear the stories about him and Coach Bryant walking in the urinal. Wait till we hear that.
Oh yeah.
My gosh.
My wife doesn't allow me to go out with Jim Bunch and Lou Green anymore.
Oh my gosh. What it means to be Crimson Tide. Coach Gene Stallings, who is a treasure, an Alabama treasure. I've had him on my show. What a joy he is. I've had Mel Moore, Bobby Bowden. I haven't got past the gatekeeper and Nick Saban yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to, not giving up. We'll talk about that book and how much fun or how hard it was actually to write. But, it's only, I think, one of the Alabama books I haven't read yet being the operative word. Talk about that book, Kirk.
Well, it came to me from a publisher in Chicago, Triumph Books. They approached me about doing it. It was their idea, what it would be. And what it would be however many players I wanted to make it, as long as I hit their words, which I did. And I wrote it in every player included in it. I wanted to get somebody from as far. There was one player left who had played in the 20s who was still alive, and I got him.
Wow.
And his son told me, the last book he read before he died was What It Means to Be Crimson Tide, which made me feel good.
Wow.
We had players from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000.
Oh,
so it was a hard. People say all the time, "Hey, Kirk, you ought to write a book on." Give me time. I say I've written 3 books. It's too hard to work, and I didn't make enough money to put myself through that again. But what I did with What It Means to Be Crimson Tide was I interviewed all the players, and then wrote it as close as I could. And I was pretty good at this because of all my years in sports information of doing stories with players and sending them out and that sort of stuff, of getting their tone. And so it sounded like them, which it was for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, when the people at Triumph saw what I'd put together, they weren't college football people. They were pro football. They could not believe the number of players from Alabama who had started in the NFL. The one player that I absolutely had to have was Joe Namath, who I didn't have. I had Bart Starr, I had Stabler, I had John Hanna. I had all the Johnny Musso, all the stars that I could possibly get, but I didn't have Namath yet. So one morning I got a phone call from Mal Moore. It was early Friday morning. And I worried about it when Mal called me early because his wife was very, very ill. And I expected bad news maybe, but it wasn't. He said, "What are you doing today?" It was Friday morning. I said, "Mal, you know what I'm doing today. I take every Friday afternoon off and play golf." He said, "Is there any chance you could have a couple of guests?" And I said, Sure. He said, I need you to put somebody with some money in the group with you. We had a dogfight group that played every Friday. So, have as many people as that wanted to play. I said, except for me, everybody's got plenty of money, so that won't be hard. So as it turned out, it was Joe Namath and his lawyer, Mike Bite, who had been a manager at Alabama when Joe was playing. And I knew Mike very well. I knew Joe too, because Joe had worked out in Tuscaloosa in the summers when I was in sports information. I'd go down the training room while he was icing down and whirlpooling and all that, talk to him. He and Sang Lida, you remember Sang.
Yep.
And so I knew him, but I didn't have any access to him. So we played golf, and Mal said I did that so you could set up a time to get the interview.
Yeah.
And it happened to be my birthday. So I got Joe to sign the card. I was going to keep the card just with his signature on it, and he wrote "Happy Birthday, Kirk," Joe Namath, and we set it up to meet on Saturday or Sunday, I forgot, or maybe even Monday. On Monday, which I was down to it on deadline, and so Monday it would be. Well, unfortunately, Joe's brother died Saturday. So I went out to the club that morning. I knew he was supposed to be out there, and saw him. And I said, "Joe, I am so sorry about your brother." I said, "Is there any way we can schedule something, phone or something?" He said, "Well, He said, "I'm not leaving till Tuesday to go up for the funeral." He said, "So we're still on for Monday." So we went in Mal's staff room. And sat there, and I said, "Joe, I won't keep you 15, 20 minutes. And he said, "That's fine." Well, in the course of our conversation, he was by correspondence, or whatever they call it now, finishing up his degree at Alabama. And he told me, he said, "I've only got one thing left to do. I've got to write a story about myself." I said, "You're in luck. It's going to be written for you." We ended up staying together about almost an hour.
Wow.
I taped it all. I got it all transcribed. Wrote the story, gave him a copy of the story and the entire transcript. And I don't know how he did it or what he did. I'm not asking any questions, but he graduated.
Oh my gosh, there's been so many greats. I'm looking forward to maybe getting Clell Hobson on, Butch Hobson's dad, the oldest living quarterback.
I hope you get him. He's living at Capstone in assisted living now, but doing well.
Yeah,
I think he's the oldest living former Alabama player.
He is, and I look forward to that. There's so many stories we could tell. We could go on, but just some quick stories. Al Miller, Mel Moore, Ray Perkins. You got any stories on those coaches that our listeners would enjoy?
Well, Mal and I were very, very close. He had started back at Alabama just a little before I had. He was coaching defensive backs in 1970 when I went down there. We were, close at the same age. And so I was very close to him throughout his life. Even after he left Alabama and went to Notre Dame and with the Cardinals, we stayed in touch. And, I still remember he called me to tell me his daughter, Heather, who I'm friends with now, had been selected as the Fiesta Bowl queen. So, I did a little story on that. And Mal and I both enjoyed a wee bit of scotch and a cigar. And so we got together quite frequently, either at his house or out at mine. I had a place on the lake he liked to go out there. We get away from business and just tell stories. Mostly we'd retell stories. We'd tell us, both of us knew it, and we'd still tell it again.
Crimson Heart's a great book that he wrote.
Oh yeah.
Crimson Heart's a great book.
Steve Townsend worked with him on that. And then Ray Perkins and I were not close when he was a coach here, when he was the head coach. We did not get close. Afterwards, he started calling me, and we started playing golf together. And you mentioned Doug Layton earlier, Cecil Dowdy, and who had been a teammate of a two-time All-American teammate of Ray Perkins at Alabama, and Ray and Doug Layton and I would get together and play golf from time to time. And I remember one time we were sitting around in the 19th hole just chatting, and Doug said something like, "Man, Ray, if you just hadn't left, we'd be doing this all the time." And Ray said, "If I hadn't left, I'd be dead now." That's how hard he considered it to be.
Wow.
Follow Coach Bryant. And of course, Al Miller was a great guy, strength coach. Very, very personable. I know he drove the guys pretty hard in there, but that's what a strength coach does. But there were not, I can't think of anybody that I ever worked with at Alabama or covered at Alabama that I didn't like, or if I knew them. There's some people in the Saban era you don't really get to know the players or the coaches. They're
right. It's a little bit hard. It's a little bit different. What a joy it is to talk to you, Kirk. My gosh, you're a treasure, Alabama treasure. I remember you're always gracious to me when I was there. I just have one outrage: where they put Alabama former players in Alabama stadiums and the upper deck end zone is an outrage. Coach Bryant be rolling over in his grave if he knew that was going on.
Yeah, that's out of the hands of the athletics department, unfortunately.
Oh, is it? It's out of the hands of the athletic department? Saban can't do anything about that?
No, the administration demanded those seats.
Well, it's about money now. At least Coach Bryant was never about, money. I mean, you can tell with the broken equipment that I had and the no elastic in my socks, you can tell. Oh, my gosh. Kirk, what about our team this year? The last question, what about our team?
Yeah.
We got to adapt, we got not turn the ball over. It's you're not going to have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback every year. You're going to have to win in other ways.
Exactly. Well, obviously the first thing, and they've gotten a little better at times and not so good at times. And it's the drive stoppers, the drive killers, the turnovers,
Right. Penalties.
penalties, dropped passes, which it seems to have been straightened out. Saban griped about that all preseason, and the wide receivers have been excellent this year. I think they've had one drop in 3 games between the whole receiving corps. So things are pretty good on the defensive side. I think the one thing that was disturbing from the defensive line was having a quarterback trapped on 3rd and long and then letting him out. They've got to figure out something on that. They can't be giving up a long play.
His baby DBs have been giving up too many long plays too. You can't give up the long play. You got to make them earn it. They can't give him that free 70-yarder. So his DBs are his babies. I know. He's having a little talk with them about eliminating big plays because Ole Miss is going to throw the ball deep.
Oh yeah, I expect this to be an explosive game. A lot of explosive plays, both sides.
All right, what a joy! Thank you, Kirk. Kirk McNair.
Enjoyed, Paul. Good to see you again, and thanks for helping me remember some good times.
Thanks, Kirk. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Kirk McNair, founder of Bama Mag, and 24/7 writer, still going at it. Man, what a joy he is. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for these messages from our sponsors. Without this, which just wouldn't happen. So long, everybody.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Step One works so hard to get you in the perfect car. Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step One Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step One supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step One Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
75 years of service and high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.